If you can keep it, if you can keep it, if you can keep it, if you can keep it.
In the name of God, we, John, King of England, grant the following liberties to be held throughout our kingdom. First, that the English Church shall be free, and shall have its rights undiminished, and its liberties unimpaired. If any of our earls, barons, or others who hold lands from us die, their heirs shall inherit without excessive payments, according to ancient customs. Guardians of lands belonging to heirs shall maintain those lands without waste, and shall restore them in good condition when the heir comes of age. Widows shall have their inheritance without delay, and shall not be forced to remarry, so long as they wish to live without a husband. No sheriff or royal official shall take horses, carts, or goods from any free person without immediate payment, unless the seller agrees. No free person shall be seized, imprisoned, dispossessed, outlawed, exiled, or in any way destroyed, except by the lawful judgment of their equals, or by the law of the land. To no one will we sell, to no one will we deny or delay right or justice. All merchants shall have safe and secure passage to enter and leave England, and to trade freely, except in time of war. There shall be 1 measure of wine, 1 measure of ale, and 1 measure of corn throughout the kingdom, and standard weights shall be used. Fines shall be proportionate to the offense, and shall not be so large as to deprive a person of their livelihood. No official shall act except according to the law, and all judgments shall be made by those who understand and follow it. Local courts shall be held regularly in fixed places, so that justice may be accessible to all. If we or our officials wrong any person, we shall correct it without delay. If we fail to do so, a group of barons may compel us to observe these terms by lawful means, to ensure that justice is done. We have granted all these liberties to be held by all free men of our kingdom, for themselves and their heirs, forever. Given under our hand, in the year of our Lord 12,015.
All people are naturally in a state of freedom and equality. No one has inherent authority over another. Each person has the same rights, and no one may harm another in their life, health, liberty, or possessions. These rights come from natural law, which teaches that all people are equal and independent, because individuals are responsible for preserving themselves and others. They also have the right to punish those who violate these natural laws. However, in this natural state, there are problems. People may act out of passion or self-interest. There is no agreed authority to settle disputes, and no consistent enforcement of justice. To solve these problems, people come together to form societies and establish governments. The purpose of government is to protect natural rights, especially life, liberty, and property. Government gains its authority only through the consent of the governed. This consent creates a social contract in which individuals agree to give up some freedoms in exchange for protection under known laws and impart impartial judgment. Property arises when a person mixes their labor with the natural world. By working the land or creating something, a person makes it their own, so long as there is enough left for others. The protection of property, broadly understood to include life, liberty, and possessions, is one of the primary reasons for forming government. Legislative power is the supreme power within a government, but it is not absolute. It must govern by established laws applied equally and directed toward the common good. It cannot take property without consent, and it must not rule arbitrarily. If a government fails in its purpose, if it violates the trust placed in it, or attempts to rule by force rather than law, it loses its legitimacy. When this happens, the people have the right to resist and to establish a new government. This is not a call to constant rebellion, but a recognition that power exists only so long as it serves the people. The ultimate authority rests with the people themselves.
Laws should reflect the nature and circumstances of the people they govern. Different forms of government arise from different principles. In a republic, the people hold power, either directly or through representatives. The guiding principle of a republic is virtue, meaning a commitment to the common good. In a monarchy, one person rules according to established laws. Its guiding principle is honor. In a despotism, one person rules by arbitrary will. Its principle is fear. Each form of government depends on maintaining its underlying principle. When that principle is lost, the government begins to fail. A stable government must be suited to its people, its customs, its economy, and its environment. There is no single system that fits all societies equally well. Political liberty exists when no person has reason to fear another. This liberty can only be preserved when power is not concentrated in a single authority. There are three types of power in every government: the power to make laws, the power to enforce laws, and the power to judge disputes. If the same person or body holds all three powers, there can be no liberty. If the legislative and executive powers are united, there is a risk that laws will be made and enforced in a tyrannical way. If the judicial power is not separate, the law may be applied arbitrarily, and individuals cannot be secure. Therefore, these powers must be divided among separate institutions. Each branch should have enough independence to prevent the others from becoming too powerful. At the same time, they should be arranged so that each can check the others, preventing abuse. This balance creates a system where no single part can dominate, and where liberty is preserved through structure.
Some writers have confused society with government, but they are very different. Society is produced by our needs. It promotes our happiness by bringing people together and encouraging cooperation. Government, on the other hand, is produced by our wickedness. It exists to restrain our vices, even at its best. Government is a necessary burden. At its worst, it is intolerable. In a state of perfect virtue, government would not be necessary. But because people are not perfect, some form of government is required to provide security. The purpose of government is simple: freedom and safety. Whatever form best achieves this with the least cost and complexity is the best. The English system claims to balance power between king, lords, and commons, but in practice, it is overly complicated and often fails to protect the people. Monarchy itself is an absurd institution. It assumes that one person is born to rule over others, not by merit, but by accident of birth. Hereditary succession makes this worse. It allows power to pass through family lines, regardless of ability, wisdom, or character. History shows that kings are often unfit, and that hereditary rule leads to conflict, corruption, and injustice.
The question is no longer whether grievances exist, but whether reconciliation with Britain is possible. The answer is no.
An island cannot rule a continent. It is contrary to reason and nature. America has outgrown its dependence on Britain. Trade can exist without political control. The colonies do not need to remain subjects in order to prosper. Remaining tied to Britain only draws America into unnecessary wars and conflicts. Even if reconciliation were possible, it would only delay future conflict. The same causes would arise again.
Time has made the separation inevitable.
America should seek independence, establish its own government, and form alliances with other nations as a free
And equal power.
A new system should be based on representation, with laws made by elected bodies, and with a written constitution to define
And limit power. The present moment is the right time. Delay only increases the cost and difficulty.
the cause of America is, in many ways, the cause of all people who value freedom.
It is not a local matter, but a question of whether liberty can take root and endure.
When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bonds which have connected them with another, a respectful explanation of the causes requires that they declare those reasons. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created equal, that they are endowed with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
To secure these rights, governments are instituted among people, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Whenever any government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to establish new government founded on principles and powers most likely to ensure their safety and happiness. Prudence suggests that long-established government should not be changed for light or temporary causes. But when a long train of abuses and usurpation shows a design to reduce the people under absolute rule,
It is their right and their duty to throw off such government.
Such has been the patient suffering of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which compels them to change their former systems of government.
The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all intended to establish absolute tyranny over these states. He has refused to approve laws necessary for the public good. He has forbidden governors to pass urgent laws and has neglected to attend to matters requiring immediate action. He has obstructed justice by refusing to establish or support independent courts. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for their positions and salaries. He has imposed taxes without the consent of the people. He has kept standing armies in times of peace without approval. He has made the military independent of and superior to civil authority. He has deprived many of the benefits of trial by jury. He has transported people overseas to be tried for alleged offenses. He has cut off trade with the rest of the world. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing his actions. He has refused to allow new elections, leaving the people without representation. He has excited unrest and conflict within the colonies. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. Whose character is marked by such acts is unfit to be the leader of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attention to our fellow citizens in Britain. We have warned them of attempts to extend unjust authority over us. We have reminded them of our shared heritage and appealed to their sense of justice. They too have been deaf to the voice of reason. We must therefore accept the necessity of separation and regard them, as we do the rest of the world, as enemies in war and in peace as friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, assembled in Congress, appealing to the supreme judge of the world for the justice of our intentions, do solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is, and ought to be, totally dissolved. And that, as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts which independent states may rightfully do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
We, the people of the United States, and order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Article 1. The Legislative Branch. All legislative powers are vested in a Congress of the United States, consisting of a Senate and a House of Representatives. Members of the House are elected every 2 years by the people of the several states. Representatives must meet age, citizenship, and residency requirements, and representation is apportioned among the states by population. The Senate is composed of 2 senators from each state, originally chosen by state legislatures, serving 6-year terms. The Vice President serves as President of the Senate, but votes only in the case of a tie. Congress has the power to levy taxes, regulate commerce, establish rules for naturalization and bankruptcy, coin money, establish post offices, declare war, raise and support armies, and make all laws necessary and proper for carrying out these powers. Certain limits are placed on Congress. It may not suspend habeas corpus except in emergencies, pass bills of attainder or ex post facto laws, or grant titles of nobility. States are also restricted. They may not enter treaties, coin money, or engage in war unless invaded or in immediate danger. Article 2. The Executive Branch. Executive powers vested in a President of the United States. The President is elected for a 4-year term along with a Vice President. The President serves as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, has the power to make treaties with the advice and consent of the Senate, appoints ambassadors, judges, and other officers, and ensures that the laws are faithfully executed. The President may be removed from office upon impeachment and conviction for treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Article 3. The Judicial Branch. Judicial power is vested in one Supreme Court and such inferior courts as Congress may establish. Judges hold their offices during good behavior and receive compensation that cannot be reduced during their time in office. The judicial power extends to cases arising under the Constitution, federal laws and treaties, as well as disputes involving states, citizens of different states, and foreign entities. Trials for crimes except impeachment shall be by jury and held in the state where the crimes were committed. Treason is defined as levying war against the United States or adhering to its enemies, giving them aid and comfort. Conviction requires testimony of 2 witnesses to the same act, or a confession in open court. Article 4. Relations among the states. Each state shall give full faith and credit to the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of every other state. Citizens of each state are entitled to the privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states. States must return persons charged with crimes who flee from justice upon proper demand. guarantee to every state a Republican form of government, and shall protect each state against invasion and, upon request, against domestic violence. Article 5. Amendments. The Constitution may be amended when 2/3 of both houses of Congress propose amendments, or when a convention is called upon. Application of 2/3 of the states. Amendments become valid when ratified by 3/4 of the states, either by legislatures or conventions as determined by Congress. Article 6. Supremacy. All debts and obligations entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall remain valid. This Constitution and the laws and treaties made under it shall be the supreme law of the land. Judges in every state shall be bound by it, regardless of state laws to the contrary. Take an oath to support the Constitution, but no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification for public office. Article 7. Ratification. The ratification of this Constitution by 9 states shall be sufficient for its establishment among the states, so ratifying. Congress of the United States begun and held at the city of New York on Wednesday, the 4th of March, 1789. The conventions of a number of the states, having at the time of their adopting the Constitution, expressed a desire, in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its powers, that further declaratory and restrictive clauses should be added. And as extending the ground of public confidence in the government will best ensure the beneficent ends of its institution, resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America, in Congress assembled, 2/3 of both houses concurring that the following articles be proposed to the legislatures of the several states as amendments to the Constitution of the United States, all or any of which articles, when ratified by 3/4 of the said legislatures, to be valid to all intents and purposes as part of the said Constitution. These articles, in addition to an amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America, proposed by Congress and ratified by the legislatures of the several states, pursuant to the 5th article of the original Constitution. Amendment 1. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Amendment 2. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Amendment 3. No soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. Amendment 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue, but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Amendment 5. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled held in any criminal case, to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Amendment 6. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. Amendment 7. In suits at common law, where the value and controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of the common law. Amendment 8. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. Amendment 9. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Amendment 10. The power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states, respectively, or to the people.
The 11th Amendment limits the jurisdiction of the federal courts. It provides that a state cannot be sued in federal court by citizens of another state, or by citizens or subjects of a foreign country, without that state's consent. The 12th Amendment revises the method of electing the president, and vice president electors meet in their states and cast separate ballots for president and vice president. The votes are counted in Congress. A majority is required to win. If no candidate for president receives a majority, the House of Representatives chooses from the top candidates, with each state delegation having one vote. If no vice presidential candidate receives a majority, the Senate makes the choice. The 13th Amendment abolishes slavery and involuntary servitude throughout the United States, except as punishment for a crime where the person has been duly convicted. It also grants Congress the power to enforce this article through appropriate legislation. The 14th Amendment establishes several foundational principles. All persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens of the United States and of the state in which they reside. No state may make or enforce laws that abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens, nor may any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person equal protection of the laws. It also addresses representation in Congress, disqualifies certain former office holders who engaged in insurrection, affirms the validity of the public debt, and grants Congress power to enforce its provisions. The 15th Amendment guarantees that the right to vote shall not be denied or restricted by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Congress has the power to enforce this provision. The 16th Amendment authorizes Congress to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived without apportionment among the states, and without regard to any census. The 17th Amendment changes the method of selecting senators. Senators are elected directly by the people of each state. It also provides for temporary appointments by state executives until elections can be held to fill vacancies.
The 18th Amendment to the United States Constitution once prohibited the manufacture, sale, and transportation of alcoholic beverages within the United States. It granted Congress and the states concurrent power to enforce this ban. This amendment was later repealed and is no longer in effect. The 21st Amendment to the United States Constitution repeals prohibition. It restores to the states the authority to regulate or prohibit the transportation and importation of alcohol within their borders. The 19th Amendment guarantees that the right of citizens to vote shall not be denied or abridged on account of sex, and grants Congress the power to enforce this article. The 20th Amendment sets the terms of federal officials. Presidential and vice presidential terms begin on January 20th, and congressional terms begin on January 3rd. It also provides procedures if a president-elect dies before taking office, and grants Congress authority to legislate for cases where neither a president-elect nor vice president-elect has qualified. The 20th Amendment sets the terms of federal officials. Presidential and vice presidential terms begin on January 20th, and congressional terms begin on January 3rd. It also provides procedures if a president-elect dies before taking office, and grants Congress authority to legislate for cases where neither a president-elect nor vice president-elect has qualified. The 22nd Amendment limits the presidency. No person may be elected president more than twice, and anyone who has served more than 2 years of another president's term may be elected only once. The 23rd Amendment grants the District of Columbia participation in presidential elections, giving it a number of electors equal to that of the least populous state, though not more. The 24th Amendment prohibits the use of poll taxes or any other tax as a condition for voting in federal elections. The 25th Amendment clarifies presidential succession. If the president is removed, dies, or resigns, the vice president becomes president. It also provides a process for filling a vacancy in the vice presidency and outlines procedures for the vice president and cabinet to declare a president unable to discharge the powers and duties of the office. The 26th Amendment guarantees the right to vote for citizens 18 years of age or older and prevents denial of that right based on age. The 27th Amendment provides that any law changing the compensation of senators or representatives shall not after the next election of representatives.
This act affirms that all persons born in the United States and not subject to any foreign power, excluding those not taxed, are citizens of the United States. As citizens, all persons shall have the same civil rights in every state and territory, regardless of race, color, or previous condition of slavery or involuntary servitude. These rights include the ability to make and enforce contracts, to sue and be sued, to give evidence in court, and to inherit, purchase, lease, sell, hold, and convey real and personal property. All citizens shall be subject to the same laws and legal protections, and shall be equally liable to punishment without discrimination. Any person who, under color of law, statute, or custom, subjects another person to the deprivation of these rights, or to different punishments or penalties on account of race or prior condition of servitude, shall be considered to have committed an offense. Those who violate these rights may be prosecuted in federal courts, and upon conviction may face fines or imprisonment as provided by law. Federal courts are granted jurisdiction to hear cases arising under this act, ensuring that individuals may seek justice even where state courts fail to protect their rights. Federal officers, including district attorneys and marshals, are empowered and required to enforce this act, bringing actions against those who violate its provisions. This law stands as a guarantee that freedom is not only the absence of slavery, but the presence of equal civil rights under the law.
This section expands the authority of the Civil Rights Commission to investigate discrimination, collect information, and report findings to the government. Title VI, Federally Funded Programs. No person shall be excluded from participation in, denied benefits of, or subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance on the basis of race, color, or national origin. Federal agencies are required to enforce this provision and may terminate funding for non-compliance. Employment, employers, employment agencies, and labor organizations may not discriminate in hiring, firing, compensation, or other terms of employment based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. This section establishes the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission to investigate complaints and enforce fair employment practices. Titles 8 through 11, procedures and miscellaneous. These sections address data collection, judicial procedures, and the transfer of certain cases from state to federal courts. They also clarify definitions, enforcement powers, and administrative processes necessary to carry out the act. This section expands the authority of the Civil Rights Commission to investigate discrimination, collect information, and report findings to the government. Title 6, Federally Funded Programs. No person shall be excluded from participation in, denied benefits of, or subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance on the basis of race, color, or national origin. Federal agencies are required to enforce this provision and may terminate funding for non-compliance. Title 7, Employment. Employers, employment agencies, and labor organizations may not discriminate in hiring, firing, compensation, or other terms of employment based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. This section establishes the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission to investigate complaints and enforce fair employment practices. Titles 8 through 11, procedures and miscellaneous. These sections address data collection, judicial procedures, and the transfer of certain cases from state to federal courts. They also clarify definitions, enforcement powers, and administrative processes necessary to carry out the act.
This act enforces the 15th Amendment by ensuring that the right to vote is not denied or restricted on account of race or color.
Section 2.
General prohibition. No voting qualification, prerequisite, standard, practice, or procedure shall be imposed or applied in a way that denies or abridges the right to vote on account of race or color. This applies nationwide and allows individuals and the federal government to challenge discriminatory voting laws and practices.
Section 4.
Coverage formula. This section identifies jurisdictions with a history of discriminatory voting practices. It establishes criteria based on past use of devices such as literacy tests and low voter participation to determine which areas are subject to additional federal oversight.
Section 5.
Preclearance. Certain jurisdictions identified under the coverage formula must obtain federal approval, known as preclearance, before making any changes to their voting laws or procedures. This ensures that new rules do not discriminate against voters on the basis of race or color.
Sections 6 and 7.
Federal examiners and observers. The federal government may appoint examiners to oversee voter registration and observers to monitor elections in covered areas. These officials help ensure that eligible citizens are able to register and vote without interference.
This section addresses the use of poll taxes, which have been used to prevent many citizens from voting. It authorizes legal challenges against such practices and supports efforts to eliminate them as barriers to voting. Section 11, Enforcement and Penalties. This section establishes penalties for interfering with voting rights. It prohibits intimidation, coercion, or harassment of voters, and provides for criminal prosecution of those who attempt to prevent others from voting lawfully.
Section 12. Federal authority. The Attorney General is empowered to bring lawsuits to enforce the provisions of this act. Federal courts are granted authority to hear these cases and to provide remedies where violations occur.
If you can keep it.
If you can keep it.
If you can keep it. A republic. If you can keep it.
Republic. Republic. Republic.
If you can keep it. If you can keep it.
A republic if you can keep it.